Vistam Stapitam Yena Bhutaleshvam Upakadam Dadansi Svantam Vandeham Shio Shiyuda Padakamam Shigum Vaishnavam Sam Shilupam Jagadatam Sakanaranatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sampaitam Sarvutam Bhajan Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sakalita Shivashakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Guna Sindhu Dina Bandha Jatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Kanki Radhe Vishwan Sutadevi Pranamama Shaka Kauta Vishwa Vipasin Vishwa Patanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shivasadi Bhagavata Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Ram. Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vistaya Bhattade Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauranga Pachalani Nirvishesha Srinivadi Prabhupada. So we have yesterday evening we have discussed the Ashtanga Yoga process, Krishna describing practically all the stages up to Samadhi. Now that will continue with some details, and after that Krishna will give us the vision of a pure devotee, one who has attained perfection. That and after that, he will speak about the mind, how to control the mind. But then Arjuna will object. He says, "I cannot do this." And Krishna replies, "Yes, you can do this, but with suitable practice." But Arjuna is not convinced, and he's asking, "What is?" Because I'm not going to be successful in that, Arjuna thinks. So he's asking, "What's the destination of an unsuccessful yogi?" And then he explains that one who practices yogi is never vanquished, but because one who does good is never overcome by evil, Krishna. And it describes the situation of a yogi with a short practice. He goes first to heaven, enjoy, because he has still material desires to fulfill, and then comes back here and takes birth in a family of a rich man, so that he doesn't have to work much. He can dedicate himself again to devotion and service. And then you have the one of the long practice. The long practitioner, if he fails, he doesn't get the perfection, he takes birth in a family of pure devotees. And then Krishna speaks about the highest yogi, one who is united in love with me within the heart, is the highest yogi. So first, Krishna speaks further about how to control the mind. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 25. Sanai Sane Uparamet Buddhya Dita Hehitaya Atma Samstam Mana Kitvana Kinchit Api Sintayat. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else than the self. So it is here. Prabhupada writes in the beginning of the purport, it's also on the screen. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should healthily cease sense activities, thus called pratyahara, going inside, shut out all the senses and go inside. Thus pratyahara. The mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and sensation for the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Only think of the pleasure of the Supreme, not our pleasure. That, of course, this verse is many compared to a horse. A horse leaves the stable, escapes, and you have to bring it back into the stable. You have to bring it back. So our mind, when we chant, wanders, you have to bring it back to Krishna. Say, oh, Krishna, here, not there. And sometimes we chant and the mind goes from one point to another and it's making 10 connections before we know it's wandering. And then you have to bring it back. That's pratyahara, bring it back to Krishna. Inside, going inside means bringing back to Krishna. That's what Prabhupada says, is one should, that is situated in trance, always meditating on Krishna within that. Then 26. Yato nishalate manashansnamastram tastastato nyamyeta atmaneva samnait. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flicking and unsteady nature, one must solely draw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So the nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but the self-realized yogi has to control the mind. So we have to control the mind. And it's on the screen. One who controls the mind is called a Goswami or Swami, or one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or servant of the senses. That we become a Goswami by always engaging our senses in the service of the Lord. You see here, this young boy is learning to play kartals and do kirtan from a long age. Someone knows who this young boy is? This is a very historical picture. That it's Bhakti Svarup Damodar Maharaj in Manipur in his youth. And he was such a warm-hearted Vaishnava. I miss him dearly. That when I was secretary for the GBC, I've been secretary for the global GBC for 8 years. And the first time I came into the GBC room, he came to me, offered his respect and his blessing. Nice. But unfortunately, he left in that terrorist attack in Manipur in the temple. But yes, serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses fully under control. What is more, That is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So we serve with our senses Krishna, and that's how we control the mind and the senses. That these yogis here, the yoga, so Prabhupada takes here from that principle what's practical and what is what is the practical value in our practice of Bhakti Yoga. That although it's about the yogis, most yogis do not meditate on Krishna. So these principles are also there for us. That now realization of Krishna as the super soul. Now we will hear about the highest realization. That's after describing the yoga practice of fixing the mind on the self, Krishna explains the realization of the yogi. Prabhupada explains the Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna situated in everyone's heart as the super soul. He sees Krishna everywhere and everything in Krishna. Thus he sees all living entities. So, yes, that we will now hear about the consciousness of a pure devotee. That Prabhupada 27 verse 27. Prashantaman samyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaita santarachasam brahmabhuta kalmasam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me barely attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. Is beyond the modes of passion. He realized the qualitative identity with the Supreme and is freed from all reactions of past deeds. So these are qualities of the perfect. When someone who has attained perfection, he relishes first transcendental happiness, the greatest bliss, which is beyond the material modes. He realizes his Satchitananda quality, his spiritual nature of being qualitatively one with the Supreme. The Supreme is also Satchitananda. And is freed from all karma. Can someone read the purport?
Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and its position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called samskarsha.
Yeah, but are you reading the purport of 27?
Brahmabhuta is the state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Matvatinda Patekaram, Bhagavad-gita 1854. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Sarainana, Krishna, to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be effectually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination.
So if you do that, Savaimana Krishna Padaya on the earth, as Ambarish Maharaj using his mind always to think of Krishna. Yes. His hands to cleanse the temple, that his ears to hear about Krishna, his mouth to speak about Krishna. Yes, then you come soon to this situation, to this perfection. That is the purpose of ISKCON. Training our mind is an institution for training the mind to fix it on Krishna. That 28. Yunyanev sadatmanam yoga vigata kalmasa sukhana brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnitam. So it's on the screen. Self-realization means, but first, does the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest states of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So the purport is on the screen. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship with the Supreme. The individual is a part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position to render transcendental service is to render transcendental service to the Lord. And then when we do that constantly, we become free from material contamination, and we become to the highest stage of happiness. So that's Prabhupada also brings it to our practice as Bhakti Yogas. What's therein for the Bhakti Yogas? That is he said before at the end of the previous chapter, this is not our process. But he uses what's practical for us and brings it out. And he will do the same thing in 29. Sarvabhutastam atmam sarvabhutani satmani. Ikshate yoga-yuktatma sarvata samadakshana. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. That's the Uttam Adhikar. He sees only Krishna everywhere. Everywhere. So the Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna situated in everyone's heart. In everyone's heart he sees the super soul that we have heard in the 5th chapter. That's some of the same. Yeah. So the living entities are situated in the energy of the Lord, serving either the material senses or the Supreme Lord directly. The Krishna conscious person sees how the living entity is in either case the servant of God. So yes, in the purport, the Krishna conscious perfect yogi is perfect seer. He sees Krishna the Supreme in everyone's heart. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Ritisayanatishtati, 1861, Bhagavad Gita. The perfect yogi knows that Krishna is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahman. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. That the living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. Can someone read the last paragraph? The yogi sees equally.
The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations, according to the results of good work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses. While in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person's Krishna consciousness.
Yes. Now, Krishna continues with describing the Uttamadhikar in text 30. That Yomam Pashati Sarvatra Sarvam Samai Pashati Tasyam Napanashami Sasame Napanashati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees me everything in me, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost. Purport. So, yeah, further in the purport. He is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna. Krishna is the Lord of everything. That is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the Supreme Personality of Godhead ever out of sight of the Lord. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. A devotee does not take this risk. And then Prabhupada quotes Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Choti Bhakti Vidochanena Sandasa Deva Sedayesi Vilokayanti Yam Syama Sundra Sinchagana Svupam Govinamad Shantamam Atrajami. And at the end, such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord. So, Prabhupada, first Baladev Vidyabhushan. He who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me never loses sight of me, nor do I lose sight of him. Also, Lord Vishnu says the same thing, Lord Narayan, to Dravas Muni, that my devotee says always thinks of me, and I always think of my devotee. That my devotee does not know anything else than me, and I do not know anything else than my devotee. That's quite a relationship. Prabhupada, when the living entity becomes fully in love in Krishna, then in that state, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor in the personality is the personality of Godhead ever out of sight of the devotee. "31. Yeah, it's purpose that at that stage a living entity can never be annihilated. Does that mean that your body becomes eternal? No. You identify with the soul and the spiritual body. The soul has a form that's called spiritual body. And thus, you are even not aware anymore of the gross body. No awareness. And you are in the spiritual body that's eternal, so it cannot be annihilated anymore. There are so many subtleties in these things to understand. 31. Sarva bhuta stitam yomam bhajati katvam sarvata vartamano pisa yogi mai vartate. Such a yogi will engage in worshipful service of the super soul, knowing that I am the super soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. The word bhajati is used in this verse. Engage in devotional service. Bhajan, the bhajan or devotional service. It's mentioned there. So there, worshipping of the super soul within the heart. So that's the purpose of yoga. So there's no difference between the innumerable super souls present in the innumerable hearts of the living entities. Nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul. A Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. The Prabhupada writes, I already read it, but it's on the screen. There is no difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in transcendental service to Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation of the super soul. They both worship Krishna. Yogis, Krishna is within and without. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities, while in material existence remains always situated in Krishna. Yeah. 32. 32. Atma panyena sarvatra samam pashati yoyuna sukam yavadi vadukam sayoga paramo mata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. So in the purport, the cause of distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of its relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer and all activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. This is a transliteration of Bhaktam Sarvaptam Sarvalok Madamaisvam Suradam Sarvabhutnam Katvanam Samkhya, etc. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, it tries to distribute the knowledge to Krishna everywhere. That Krishna says at the end of the 18th chapter, there will be no one more dear than the preacher of Krishna consciousness. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world and is the dearest servitor of the Lord. In other words, the devotee of the Lord always looks for the welfare of all living entities. In this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not as be perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness. Because those who are withdrawn in a secluded place, they are only concerned with their own self-realization and with and are not concerned with others. Prahlad Maharaj said they are selfish. So, O Arjun, this is the translation of Baladev Vidyabhushan here. That O Arjun, I consider him to be the topmost yogi who sees everywhere the happiness and distress of others as his own. The cause of distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands, planets, and the dearest friends of all living entities. And now we come at the next section. The Arjun is rejecting the yoga process. That Arjuna rejects the Ashtanga yoga system as impractical because his mind appears uncontrollable. Krishna assures Arjuna that it is possible to control the mind by constant practice and detachment. So, text 33. So, Arjuna vacha yam yogastvaya bhakta samyena madhusuda. Etasya hamna pashami sansadatvat stitim stiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and endurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. It says it's impractical. I cannot do it. The mind is too restless because, yes, impractical. See this young boy here. It was his birthday, but the cake was too big. And yeah, his eyes were bigger than the stomach, they say. And after eating too much, what happens? Yeah. So the mind that touches the material enjoyment overcomes the intellect. The mind says, eat, eat, eat. And intellect does not intervene because the mind is full of lust. And it doesn't go well. And that happens again and again. And Arjuna says, I cannot do this. And Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada, it is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and to go to a secluded place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. So again, I say, Prabhupada said, Arjuna is 1,000 times more qualified than all of us. He could not do it, so what with us? What are the qualities of those in Kali Yuga? Payanalpayo Basapya, Kalavas Minchurechana, Mandasamanda Mateo, Mandabhakyu Padruta, 1:10 of the Bhagavatam. But in this age of Kali, everyone is short-sighted. It's always disturbed. So we cannot do it. Kali Yuga. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. If this were so 5,000 years ago, but with the present day, Kali Yuga goes very quickly, progresses very quickly, especially with the so-called scientific advancement for the last 150 years. It progressed so quickly that yes, the mind overcoming the intellect. Next. Sansalamimana Krishna Pramati Valavatritam Tasyam Nijam Manye Fayori Vasuduskam. The mind is restless, Arjuna says, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna. And to subdue it, I think it's more difficult than controlling the wind. But So this is from the Papa's purport. The mind is so strong that often it overcomes one's own intelligence as an acute infection that may surpass the efficacy of the medicine. So, but yeah. So one cannot capture the wind. So one cannot control the mind. Only by chanting Hare Krishna with humility can we be delivered from the mind control. Prabhupada says in the purport. So the earliest way, the easiest way to control the mind as suggested by Lord Chaitanya is to chant Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humility. The method prescribed is, and he mentioned again, Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayam, Ambarish Maharaj, all these verses. That's how to control the mind. So if you hear, this is maybe the 10th time Prabhupada mentioned this in Bhagavad Gita, that to control the mind, what you have to do. So if you have to control the mind, the difficulties with the mind, how to control the mind, you should immediately remember Savaimana Krishna Padarabandhya. Think of the lotus feet of Krishna in your mind. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then there remain no other engagements to agitate the mind. Now, text 35. So, moment, first, this is still from 34, Vishwanath. The mind is fickle, agitating, strong, and firm. I think it's more difficult than to control the wind. The driving mind is a driving instrument. The individual is the passenger in the car of the material body, and the intelligence is the driver. The mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the host. So what's happening? That the mind is a driving instrument, and it's going to drive you without the intelligence guiding it. What's going to happen? If you are on a chariot and the instruments and the driver is not driving with his intelligence, but all he feels, he will get serious problems there. That no, Krishna's reply, and that's interesting. Sri Bhagavan Upacha, Asamsyam Mahabaho, Manu Dulni Ram Salam, Abhyasna Tikantya Varhyena Sahriyate. Lord Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and detachment. Practice by practice and detachment, it's possible. But practice, in the purpose, it is in the translation of the verse, Prabhupada said suitable practice. Suitable. What is a suitable practice for this age? To control the mind? Chanting the whole names of Krishna. Yeah. Therefore, suitable refers. Every age has its practice. That in Satya Yuga it was meditation. They were pure in heart, in goodness. In Treta Yuga, some vice came in and they could not meditate anymore, but there were still qualified Brahmas to perform Jahya, Svaha. That was their process. And then more vice came in Dvapara Yuga. The Brahmas were not so qualified anymore that they could pronounce these mantras. They're still qualified, but they did then deity worship. In Kali Yuga, no qualified Brahmas anymore. Yeah. Kala Sudra Sambhava. Everyone is born Sudra in this age. Therefore, we can only chant Hare Krishna because we are all big fools. That's the problem. That's what Ishvara Puri said to Lord Chaitanya, that you are a big fool. You cannot study the Vedas. You just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So here, by the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engaged in 9 types of devotional service. The first and most foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. This is very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. So we must hear sufficient to chant properly. That's important. The more we hear, then the more we come to know who Krishna is, and the more we know who we are and how to live in our relationship with Krishna. That is called Sambandha Jnana. And Haridas Thakur said, unless we come to that proper Sambandha Jnana, Anartha Nivritti, or the purification of the heart, does not take place. And very important. Hearing the Bhagavatam class. Therefore, I said, to be on the transcendental boat, you must do 4 things, and one of the 4 is hearing the Bhagavatam. This is not coming from me, this is coming from Bhakti Charamaj. He stressed that always. Do these 4 things, you are safe every day. That's true. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. This is practical. By hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. Similarly, the discharge of devotional service, by the discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. Hearing of the transcendental activities of the Lord is therefore the expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating foodstuff to offer to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is a process of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada compares the process of Krishna consciousness of a cure for the material disease. And he says, one part is hearing, the other is eating prasad. So what is suitable practice? By the practice of Krishna consciousness, one engaged in 9 types of devotional service of the Lord. The first foremost of such devotional service is hearing about Krishna. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. Srila Prabhupada. Vairagya, detachment. By the discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. Yes. That so suitable practice and detachment. Hearing the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is the expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating foodstuff to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patients. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Yoga without practice, without mental control. Yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. It is my opinion that yoga is not possible for one with uncontrolled mind. Baldev Vidyabhushan says. Prabhupada says that also yoga without control of the mind is a farce. Now we will hear about a successful yogin that first 36 we did not read. Asamsayatma na yogo duspratya iti me mati pasyatmana tu yatata sakyo vaptum upayata. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So, purport. The Supreme Personality of God declares that one who does not accept the proper treatments to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Because the mind must be controlled. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire, pouring water on it. Yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. At the end, a Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner can achieve success without becoming. Cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. So yoga means becoming Krishna conscious, conscious of the supersoul within the heart. Otherwise, it's not a bona fide yogi. And Arjun, is he satisfied? No. We will hear. Because he thinks this is impractical. I'm not going to be able to do this. I will be unsuccessful. So he's asking about the unsuccessful yogi. He thinks that's my case. Arjuna Vacha, Ayati Shadayopeto Yosak Shalati Manasa, Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam gatim Krishna gachati. Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but later desists due to world-mindedness, and does not attain perfection in mysticism." That at the end of the purport, I think it's also. So Arjuna asked about the destination of the unsuccessful yogi. But Krishna assures him that the yogi's next birth will be auspicious, giving him another chance for self-realization. That's 40, but let's first read the other verses. That's the basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that the living entity is not a material body, but that he is different from it, and his happiness is in eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. These are transcendental beyond both body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, by the practice of the eightfold system of Bhakti Yoga. Further, even a little endeavor on the transcendental path offers great hope for deliverance. The path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is the most direct method of God realization. At the end, to pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war to the illusory energy. Consequently, when a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. So Maya will test us. Maya is Krishna's energy. Dus the devotee asked Prabhupada, will Krishna test us? Prabhupada said, yes, he will test us. And will the test, the devotee asked, will the test become always more severe? That Prabhupada said, no. Once you pass the test, you pass the test. But mostly we don't. Therefore, we have to sit again for the exam. The test comes again and again, unless we pass that. 38. Kashinnabhaya vibrastas shinabram ivanashati apastito mahabaho vimudam vamana pati. Almighty Aunt Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away, both spiritual and material success, and perish like a riven cloud with no position? In the purport, if the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. So Arjuna has a doubt and said, yeah, if I don't get perfection in that, I cannot enjoy materially and also not spiritually. I lose everything at the end of the purport. When we surrender to the Supreme, is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma realization takes many births. Paunam Jnanam Ante. Therefore, the supremost path of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, the direct method. Don't take an indirect method. 39. Etam me samsayam Krishna chetumara shashesataha patanya samsaya yaspa chetana. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is found who can destroy this doubt. So I asked Krishna, just please remove my doubt. So therefore, at the end of the purport, therefore the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts, because he knows past, present, and future perfectly. But no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. And now Krishna start to answer. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Partana vaya namutra vinasastasya vichyate naikalyakritka chit durgatim tatakachati. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, a son of Pita, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities, does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. That in the purport, if someone gives up all material prospects and takes completely shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. So we have heard that before. Krishna said there is 240, there is no diminution that or on this path, and it protects one from the greatest danger. What was the greatest danger? Yeah.
Being born as an animal.
Yeah, to become an animal, to become degraded. So if you practice Krishna consciousness even a little, your next life, again, a human being, that's the minimum consolation price. That and because in the 9th chapter, Krishna will say again, Nami Bhaktya Pranashati, my devotee will never perish, he says to Arjuna. Will never perish, Krishna says. And he says to Arjuna, you declare it to everyone. That and Paul Bhushan puts lines between the verses of the Gita, and Arjuna is saying, you want me to declare that? Why are you not doing it yourself? Arjuna says to Krishna. Krishna says, I'm from Mathura. And those from Mathura are known as cheaters. But they will never cheat those whom they love. They will never cheat those who love him. So unless we love Krishna, Krishna cheats us with his Maya. We are under Maya. That is Krishna. He will never cheat those whom they love. So we are never overcome by evil if we love Krishna. Try to love Krishna. Even try to come to that point. So activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity. And anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. That one who tries his best in this matter does not fear degradation. That's the last part of the purport of this verse 40. Yeah. Purport, right in the purport, that those who are engaged simply in bestial sense gratification without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section, and those who follow principles of prescribed duties in the scriptures are classified amongst the regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and non-educated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. Their activities are never auspicious because while enjoying the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, they perpetually remain in material existence, which is always miserable. And then further, Those who follow the path of auspiciousness can be divided in 3 sections. 1, followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity. 2, those who are trying to find liberation from material existence. So the first are the karma kandas, the second are the jnanis. The third, those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness, the bhaktas. Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into 2 classes, the fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit of sense gratification. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to the higher stan. These are the karma kandis and higher planets. But those who are those are not free from material existence. They are not following the truly auspicious path. The only auspicious activities are those that lead one to liberation. Any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material concept of life is not at all suspicious. Activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity. Now, Krishna speaks about unsuccessful yogi after a short practice. You have a short practice and a long practice. If we are neophytes in devotional service, and we are not yet come to chanting 16 rounds and so on, and receiving initiation and so on, then we are still neophytes. We have still a lot of material desires because we are not entered really in anartha nivritti. That is a short practice. But if we are initiated and we are chanting for 5-6 years, and the hearts become purified, and we are serious, you become long practitioner. Yes, we should understand that difference in terms of our own practice here. But first, the short practitioner. Prapya punya kitam lokam ushitva sasvati samachachinam shimatam jehe yoga brasta vichayate. Unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment of the planets of the pious living entities, born into a family of righteous people or into the family of such aristocracy. That in the purpose, one who is fallen after very little progress, and one who is fallen after a long practice of yoga. The yogi who fails after a short period goes to the higher planets where the pious living entities are allowed to enter. Here on the picture you have these higher planets. Become a demigod, you can sit on a cloud. After prolonged life there, then one is sent back to this planet to take birth in a family of a righteous Brahmin, Vaishnava, or aristocratic merchant, or something like that. Yes. The Vishwanath writes, after attaining the walls of the pious and living there for long years, many thousands of years, until your pious credit is finished. Yeah. The fallen yoga is born into the house of the religious and wealthy. That good. Many are demigods who take birth in our movement. That, and then, after a long practice, atavayoginam eva kulabhava tadimatam etati dulapataram loke chanmaya disvisam. Or if unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are greatly surely in wisdom, certainly such a birth is rare in this world. If you have a long practice, you take birth in a family of pure devotees. And Prabhupada said, I was in that case. that I took birth in a family of a pure devotee. My father, Mohan Dev, was a pure devotee. And from Prabhupada, when he was a baby, he was hearing already every evening his father ringing the bell, offering the Sastri, and then he was 5 years, yeah, even younger. Every day they brought Prabhupada at the other side of the road in the Mulik's temple. I've been there. And there they worship Radha Govinda. Radha Govinda is still there. We stayed overnight in this temple. It was nice. That with many devotees. That was in '96. That beautiful Radha Govinda deities. And Prabhupada, as a young boy, was standing there, gazing to the deities for hours. This is not a child does not do that. But he was a pure devotee, just looking for hours to the deities. And his father organized for him the children yatra in the street and so on. But his father was reading the Bhagavatam every day. That was receiving sadhus. So but Prabhupada said also, my spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, was born in a family of a pure devotee. His father was Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So he was in the same case. And then later we met each other through the transcendental system of the Guru Parampara. Prabhupada tells us. Yeah. So here on the screen, or if unsuccessful after a long practice, it takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. On Vishnupachi, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. And then we met by the order of the transcendental system. But now, that's what happens if you take another verb, that Tatratam buddhisam yogam labate paradekam yatate satayuboya samstha nandana. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success as son of God. Can someone read the purport? In the purport, we hear the story of Bharat Maharaj, which is in the pictures also on the screen.
King Bharata, who took his third birth in the family of good Brahmana, is an example of good birth for the revival of previous transcendental consciousness. King Bharata was the emperor of the world, and since his time this planet has been known among the demigods as Bharatavarsha. Formerly, it was known as Ilbrita-Varsa. The emperor at an early age retired for spiritual perfection but failed to achieve success. In his next life, he took birth in the family of a good Brahmana and was known as Jada Bharatma because he always remains secluded and did not talk to anyone. And later on, he was discovered as the greatest transcendentalist by King Rahugana. From his life, it is understood that transcendental endeavors or the practice of yoga never go in vain. By the grace of the Lord, the transcendentalists gets repeated opportunities for complete perfection in Krishna consciousness.
So please read the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, read the entire story. You will understand how this process goes. So on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. And he gives more details in text 4, 44. Purvabhyasena tene variate avasopisa Shikhnasurapi yogyasya sapta brahma tivaktantate. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attached to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist is always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So we have here on the screen, Lord Chaitanya accepted Haridas Thakur as one of his most important disciples. Although Thakur Haridas happened to take his birth in a Muslim family, he was elevated to the post of Namacharya by Lord Chaitanya due to his rigidly attended principles of chanting 300,000 holy names of the Lord daily. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, and because he chanted the holy name of the Lord constantly, it is understood that in his previous life he must have passed through all the ritualistic methods of the Vedas known as Sabda Brahman. So he quotes also this verse of the Bhagavatam 3:33:7. O Bhataspapato Karyan Ashikre Vartite Namatubhyam Tepasta Pastesu Sasnuraya Pamanu Chunamikanantete. O my Lord, persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship are far advanced in spiritual life, even if born in families of a dog eater. Such chanters have undoubtedly performed all kinds of austerities and sacrifices, bathed in all sacred places, and finished all scriptural studies. So if you chant the holy name, you must have done that in previous lives. So the devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, did we really do it? Did we really do all these things in our previous life? Prabhupada said, I did it for you. So this is the mercy of the contact with your devotee. Interesting that he said. But we see also, if you study the astrological charts of devotees, you will always see that religion is a very dominant point. That they become, some way or another, become attracted again to Krishna in the next life. Krishna brings us on that path, that we will become attracted again. That so 45 first. Pratyana yatamanastu yoga samsuda kilbisa aneka janma samsidas tatuyati pramgatin. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. That in the perfect, with determination, therefore, he begins his unfinished task, and thus he completely cleanses himself of all material contamination. When he is finally free from all contamination, he attains the supreme perfection, Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And that's also mentioned in 728. Ye samtvandhapam papam jananam punyakarmanam te tvandvo nirmukta ajante mamrita vita. After many births of executing pious activities, when one is completely free from the contamination, and all illusory dualities, one becomes engaged in transcendental loving service to the Lord. And now Krishna brings us at the end of the chapter to the highest yogi. That is 46. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi janibhyo pimatodika karmabhyasa diko yogi tasmat yogi bhavayana. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empirist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the absolute truth. That otherwise there's no yoga. Yoga means linking with the absolute truth. Can be linked with the Supreme Brahman, can be linked with Paramatma, can be linked with the Bhagavan realization, like the Bhaktas. That you must link. You must be yogi. Linking is yogi. That linking with Krishna. So Bhakti of Krishna consciousness is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect, and empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme is also imperfect. And fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. That's on the screen. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here in is Bhakti yoga. And this will be explained in the last verse. And we can repeat that together. Please repeat. Yoginam api sarvesham adhyatanantaratmana Shadavan bachate yoman Sane yukta tamo mata. So the highest yogi, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimate united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Krishna says that a few times. That's my opinion, Krishna. Like someone else, I just give my opinion. But when Krishna gives his opinion, it's a law. But I consider he who worships me with great faith, with mind attached to me, to be greater than all types of yogis. Baladev Vidyabhushan. I read here and there a line of the purport. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by its own constitution. Failing to do this, it falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms as follows. Yaisam Purusham Sakshat Atma Prabhavanishvaram Nabhajanta Vajananti Stanat Prasta Patanchada. Anyone who does not render devotional service and neglects his duty unto the primal Lord who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. So Prabhupada again refers to the word bhajanti. Shadavam bhajanti yomam. The word bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or any common living entity. Further, the culmination of all kinds of yoga practice lies in Bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Further, when karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. That's like a summary. When jnana yoga increases in meditation of the supersoul by different processes and the mind is on him, it's called Astanga yoga. When one surpasses Astanga yoga and one comes to the point of a Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's called Bhakti yoga, the culmination. So this is also a way of explaining the links between the different yoga systems by Prabhupada. Then further, if one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti yoga, is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Syama Sundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is effulgence as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels and whose body is flower garland, that illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. The state of perfection of yoga can be attained in Bhakti Yoga as confirmed in all scriptures. Prabhupada refers to the importance of the spiritual master again. Yasya deva para bhaktir yata diveta tako tatsaiva katitayasta pakasyanti mahatmana. Only unto those who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Yes. Hare Krishna. This is the end of chapter 6. Any questions? Yes, Bhakti.
When talking about Ambarish, that one controls the mind when fixing the mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord, I was asking myself, because I hear very often the lotus feet, but why is it the lotus and the feet? And I'm not clear with both of these.
Yeah, the lotus is born from mud, and it comes above the water, very beautiful. And if water falls on it, it does not impregnate in it, it rolls. So it is transcendental. So lotus feet means the transcendental feet of Krishna. That's the special, they are not ordinary feet, that we don't have such feet. Krishna is lotus feet, and it's very beautiful, and fragrant and so on. Therefore, Krishna's feet are compared. It's different for us. Our feet are the dirtiest part of the body. Krishna's feet are different. Yes, Viviana.
I was thinking the soul is pure and everlasting and so on. How is it possible the soul can be contaminated? And when the soul is contaminated, that's a fact. What then is the function of the mind? Because I actually thought it's the mind that is contaminated and that makes an impression on the soul.
Yeah. So, what is a symptom of the soul?
Science.
Consciousness. Consciousness. Desire is activity of the soul. It's consciousness. And it's the soul's consciousness that becomes contaminated, not the soul. Yeah. And that consciousness pervades the subtle body. Therefore, we must purify the subtle body where this consciousness of the soul is contaminated. That is the point. So the soul is transcendental, cannot be contaminated. that it's the consciousness of the soul. Yes.
In the essay we're supposed to write, one of the questions is that we should argue for why one doesn't have to practice any other yoga system to come to Bhakti. Does Prabhupada speak about this?
Yeah, we need the superiority of Bhakti.
Yeah, superiority, but
Yeah.
but often it says that this was about that it made lifetime to take to Bhakti. I understand the question more as like if one can skip all the others.
Yeah. That the point is the other yoga systems, they will change your reactions, destroy your reactions of past activities. You become purified of the reactions, but it's not purifying the desire in the heart. The desire to enjoy is still there. Only Bhakti Yoga uproots the desire to enjoy completely. And the other yoga systems do not do that. They only remove the reactions, but do not change your desire. But when we become Krishna conscious, we become attracted to Krishna. And we desire to serve Krishna. We become attracted, our desire changes, and we lose our attraction for the lower taste. But that happens only when we come in contact with Krishna. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is you must develop devotion for Krishna to go back to the spiritual world and get your permanent situation of liberation. The other is not a permanent situation of liberation. It's temporary because the soul wants spiritual activity. It can only be got in the spiritual world. And I also told you that about Bhakti Yoga is the complete yoga. It has 5 qualities: action, knowledge, renunciation, meditation, and devotion. And you need these 5 qualities to purify the heart. That the others, the karma yoga has only 2 qualities. That's action and renunciation. And jnana yoga has also 2 qualities: renunciation and knowledge. And Ashtanga yoga has 3 qualities: renunciation, knowledge, and meditation. But the action is not there, the devotion is not there. And these are essential. We act in the spiritual world as servants. Action must be there to act as a spirit soul. And devotion must be there as our connection with Krishna. That's the Bhakti. There are much more arguments. I mentioned only a few, but you have to write the essay. Hare Krishna. Good. Then our time is up. Thank you very much. We will end here. And so now you have